Hello, welcome to our How Do I video series for Microsoft Dynamics NAV 2016. My name is Vanessa Garcia, and in this video I will present to you how do I create and use workflow in Microsoft Dynamics NAV 2016. At the end of this video, you will have an overview on the basic concepts for the new workflow functionality, its purpose, and how to set up and create new workflows in the application. Also, we will explore the additional functionalities that need to be correctly configured and activated in the system, as well as how to modify existing responses and add new and different conditions to the different workflows. Finally, we will also follow a couple of demos on two different scenarios with workflows. To get there, we will go through the following 4 steps. First of all, we will introduce workflow functionality, what it's about, and where workflow is mainly focused to. Secondly, we will see all the common setup needed related to workflow functionality so that everything works as expected. The third step will be a demo where you will discover how to create a workflow and how to change the setup and conditions as desired. In this case, we will create and use a customer credit limit approval workflow. The last step will be another example of workflow in Microsoft Dynamics NAV 2016 related this time to purchase invoice workflow and how the posting can be automated in the application. First of all, let's see what workflow functionality is about. What is workflow? Workflow enables you to model real-life business processes like best practices or industry standard practices, ensuring that a customer credit limit has been independently verified or requiring a two-person approval for a significant vendor payment are good examples of possible workflow processes to be set up in the application. Within a workflow, it's common to work with 3 main capabilities. These focus workflow in working with approval, notification, and process automation. To support these capabilities, NAV has added or extended existing functionality. Workflow templates have been designed and have been included out of the box in NAV demo data as examples with the more typical scenarios for approval, notification, automated document posting, credit limits, and so on. Those are samples and templates to be used as they are, or from which you can copy when creating your own workflows, but many more can be created and customized as well to meet your needs. Our workflows are implemented as events and responses with the intention that you can mix and match different events and responses to build new workflows. We need to differentiate between workflow, which is a collection of one or more event response pairs designed and managed through the workflow designer, and workflow template, which is a mechanism to deliver workflow processes to a NAV system. The workflow event, this is the trigger for the workflow to start. It can be a NAV event or action implemented in CAL and registered in the workflow library. And response is an implementation in CAL of a response. We are going to follow a couple of demos where you will see how powerful workflow functionality is. But before, let's focus on a couple of things we need to set up so that everything works as expected. You may not need all this setup for the workflow you choose to use in your NAV system, but we will go through them here because we use them in our demo. In case we expect emails to be sent from Dynamics NAV to email accounts, we need to have these settings correctly configured. For this, we should go to the SMTP mail setup window and fill in the SMTP server, port, and other possible values needed for your email settings configuration to work correctly. You can make a test email setup to check that all works as expected. We can use the default job queue so that the actions will run in the background. For that, we just need to start the job queue by using the Start Job Queue process on the Job Queue card page. Please note that we remove the check under Start Automatically from NAS because the demos will be done in a single machine installation. If you are going to do this a lot of times or just want to make sure the system is going to work right after server restart, then consider setting up as NAS instead. NAV had a good approval capabilities before we added workflow, and the approval user setup window is mostly unchanged. It's there where we can define the users that will be able to approve, define a change of approvals, and specify the email address where we want the notifications to be sent to. The Workflow User Group window is new in Dynamics NAV 2016, and it introduced the possibility to create groups of users for approvals. Later on, we will be able to use those workflow user groups in our conditions and filters for the different workflow responses related to approvals. Under sequence number field, we can specify numbers which will define the order for the approvals, and if we specify the same sequence number, for example 1 in both lines, both approvals will be sent out at the same time to the different approvers. In NAV, we will find different notification templates, but we can create new ones. For example, by default, for approvals, the standard notification will be an email. We could create a new line for a note to be created instead when we notify someone for approvals. It's also possible to set up the notifications not to be sent instantly, but daily, weekly, and so on. For this demo, we will use instantly, but it's possible to change this schedule using the Notification Setup window. Let's start now with the first demo, Customer Approval Workflow. First of all, we will create a new workflow from Departments, Administration, Application Setup, Workflow, Workflows. In this example, we will copy a workflow from an existing template. In this case, the Customer Approval Workflow. The workflow steps will appear in the window and we can modify them to meet our needs. For example, for this demo, we will focus on comparing a change on the customer credit limit. If the limit of 10,000 is exceeded, then some actions will be executed. To set this limit, we can add a condition where credit limit is higher than 10,000. Also, when pending approvals is equal to 0, then we would like a notification to be sent to the user. To do that, for this event, we are going to add an additional response. Apart from Remove Record Restriction System Response, we select Add More Responses. We add a new line for Create a Notification for User, and under Recipient User ID, we specify the user who will receive the notification, in this case, Europe B.A. Garcia, and we click OK. Additionally, we are going to modify the way the approval will work, introducing our previously created workflow user group. For that, we go to this event, Approval of a customer is requested, and we edit the responses. Then, instead of approver type equal to approver and direct approver, we will select our workflow user group, my workflow user group, including two different approvers, Cassie and Phyllis, to whom the approval request will be sent at the same time. Of course, we need to enable this workflow in order it's activated. For that, we just click Enable. Summarizing, if the user modifies the credit limit to a higher value than 10,000, the following responses will be executed. The customer will be blocked until this change is approved or rejected. An approval request will be sent to the approver set under our workflow user group. After the requests have been rejected or approved by both approvers in the workflow user group, a notification should be created for Europe B.A. Garcia user and the record restriction should be removed. Let's see what happens. Imagine that Europe B.A. Garcia goes to customer 20,000 and modify the credit limit for this customer to 30,000. And then she sent the approval request. The customer should be restricted, so if we try to post a sales invoice for this customer now, we will get the following error message. If we look into the approval request entries window, we will see two entries created, one for Cassie and one for Phyllis, with the same sequence number, so both were sent at the same time, and we expect both to be approved to proceed. Notifications are also created for both Cassie and Phyllis under the Notification Entries window. Now, Cassie logs into Microsoft Dynamics NAV and she reviews her request to approve, finding the credit limit 1 sent by Europe B.A. Garcia, and Cassie approves this request. Even if we log now as Europe VA Garcia after Cassie approved the request, we still won't be able to post the previous invoice because the record is still blocked. So Phyllis logs in the system in order to approve her request for approval as well. Phyllis finds her request to approve and she also approves it. Once back to Microsoft Dynamics NAV 2016 and log with the user Europe VA Garcia, we can check that the restriction has been removed for customer 20,000, so we can post already the previous invoice and perform actions for this customer again. And as expected and set it up in our workflow, a notification has been created as well for Europe VA Garcia, informing her on the approval after all the approvers in the workflow user group have approved her request. In this second demo, I will show you how we can automate the posting of documents, this time on the purchase side. For this one, we will also copy an existing workflow template, in this case, the purchase invoice workflow. The events and responses we will get by default are the following ones. So, when a purchase document is released, the document will be automatically posted in the background. Once the document is posted, a payment line will be created to pay that purchase document, and once the general journal line is created, a notification will be also created for the specified user. In order to get all the required information for this workflow, there are two responses which will need some input from the user. First of all, we need to specify the journal template name and journal batch name where we want the payment journal to be created in the background. To do that, we just need to edit the response and add the journal template name, for example, general, and the journal batch name, for example, default, in this case, and we need to specify for which user we want the notification to be sent to. For that, we just edit the response and click Recipient User ID, selecting Europe VA Garcia in this case, and click OK. Our workflow is ready now to be activated. For that, we just click Enable. Let's see what happens. Imagine that we have the following purchase invoice and we release it. Right now, the active purchase invoice workflow will start executing events and responses. We can keep track of it using the new workflows fact boxes, which will be visible in those places in the application where a workflow is being executed. If we navigate through Purchase Invoice Workflow, which is the active workflow for this document, the workflow overview window will appear and we will be able to review which of the workflow steps have been completed and which ones are still inactive. The invoice will appear in the list of purchase invoice, but it will be there only for some seconds as it will be posted in the background. If now we click refresh, it will disappear. As the event of purchase invoice posted is met, if we go to General Journal for the journal template default, we will see the new line created automatically as suggestion of payment for this invoice. And finally, if we check the notifications created for Europe VA Garcia, we will see a new one as expected with the information about the new General Journal line created automatically by the system. As you can see, the conclusion is that Microsoft Dynamics NAV Workflow new functionality is just amazing. I will summarize for you now the 4 steps we follow in this video to learn about workflow functionality. Introduction to workflow functionality, where we learn what's the workflow functionality about and what its main purposes are. We also learned about setup required before using workflow, which allow us to configure all the connected functionality in correctly so we get the most from workflow functionality. Customer credit limit approval workflow demo, where we learn how to set up, modify and use one specific workflow created from scratch, in this case for customer credit limit approvals. And finally, the purchase invoice workflow demo to show how to use a workflow to automate the posting of documents once they are released, in this case for purchase invoices. With only those 4 steps, we have covered the following topics related to workflow: introduction to workflow functionality, setup required before using workflow, and 2 demonstrations showing 2 different workflows, customer credit limit approval and purchase invoice. You can find additional and extended information on workflow functionality on the following sites. Thank you for watching. It was great to have you in this video. I'm looking forward to see you again in another of our How Do I video serials from Microsoft Dynamics NAV 2016. I hope you enjoy it and see you next time.